Hello, and welcome back to Reddit Raccoon. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Now it's story time.
Wife had an affair. Should I meet her or ghost her? Me M/32. Wife F/28. I have been with my wife for 7 years. At first it was great. She was my soulmate and I was hers. We had similar interests in sports, entertainment, social issues, more on that later, holiday destinations, etc. We were happy for years. However, things started to change when my wife was becoming more distant, even slightly colder. Now let me give you some insight. We have been together for 7 years. For 5 years it was, as I said, happy. I felt I was her world as she was mine. We went out with friends and I see her always smiling at me when we talked to our friends. She would take care of me when I was sick, as I did with her. She would back me whenever needed. She was my rock, my best friend, my one and only. We would do many things together like hiking, camping, wildlife resorts, same interests, go to watch the football. We had a passion for each other. I never wanted her to change. When I first met her she was beautiful. Brunette, curly hair, stunning smile and so nice. She always implied the same with me. She made me feel special, not once did I feel inadequate or insecure about myself, more on that later. As I said, for over 5 years it was great. But things started to change when her new supervisor started at her work. I'm calling him Marju's 30. Now at first she would come home and talk about Marju's. She would say that he's funny and makes people feel good. Of course I was slightly taken aback at first because she would usually come home and ask about my day and hers. But she immediately talked about Marju's straight away. However, at the time I brushed it off as someone who is new as her work. She sees the same faces for years. So when Marju showed up it was refreshing. Weeks pass and my wife seems to be more distant and secretive. She would go out to work nights, which didn't bother me as she went on plenty before. However, we were meant to go out to a mutual friend's house for drinks. He is in a bad way as he has been diagnosed with a disease that is severe. My wife, as I said, is a rock usually. Really empathetic and supportive. So when we found out about our friend Daniel 32, we didn't hesitate to go over and show our support. The night came to go over and my wife was running late from work, night out. I called her a few times and no answer. I texted her. No answer. After waiting I decided to go to Daniel's myself. Daniel and I talked about how he's adapting and coping. During that time I felt for Daniel. Such a nice guy to have this is cruel. Afterwards I got home and I'm seething. My wife is still not home. No missed calls or texts. Seriously? I couldn't believe it. I was getting worried if she's been in an accident. So I called her work colleague Jane, 28. I get on with Jane and asked her if Kelly, my wife, is out with her. Jane said that she is, but Jane went home and it was just her and Marju's left out. I was angry. So angry. We have known Daniel for years and she would skip meeting our friend over a guy she just met? I kept telling myself there is an explanation for this. I waited until she got home. Eventually she arrived home and saw me in the living room looking at her. What's wrong? Everything okay? I looked her in bemusement and said Daniel. She looked mortified. I'm sorry, I forgot. I was out with work friends and lost track of time. She looked sincere. Her and Daniel are good friends, so maybe she did forget. I did ask her a question. Who was out with you? She replied, usual Jane. Sophie 30, etc. I replied, not Marju's? Oh yes, he was there. I pressed on, remembering what Jane said. Did everyone stay out until the end? She replied, yes, it was a good night. The next day I'm angry. I don't say anything to my wife, but she has never lied to me before. She has never let anyone down before. I couldn't grasp that she would bail on our sick friend for a guy she just met. The next few days my wife was becoming more distant. She would come home later and not be affectionate towards me. I still put this down to workload maybe. But when she got home she would be in her phone constantly. I asked her, who is it that you're always texting? Just a friend from work, she said. I asked her, is it Marju's? No, she said, but what's the problem if it is? I never seen my wife get defensive like this, but I was going to be honest. I replied. Because you never shut up about him. He's been working with you for under a month and you seem to idolize him. Your face sparkles when you talked about him. So much so you forgot about Daniel. I could tell I hit the spot. She replied, "No, I do not idolize Marjus. He's nice but just a friend." And I apologized to Daniel already. This wasn't enough. I waited until she was asleep and checked her phone. And surprise, it was full of sext messages between them. I took photos of the conversation for later. A week has passed and it's still continuing. The late nights. The lack of affection. I speak to a friend about my concerns and he said maybe I'm being paranoid. Try to do something new, like make her a surprise dinner. I liked that idea. So I texted my wife and asked if she's busy after work. She replied, "No, I'm free." It seemed to be a nice text conversation. So I made dinner. Got a nice bottle of wine and flowers. She got home and looked sad at me. She said she's really sorry, but a friend from work is organizing a surprise birthday party for a colleague. And that night is the only night they have. I shook my head in frustration and anger. She literally left right after and drove off. This was it. After months of suspicion, I needed proof. I know you must read this and say to yourselves, "Friend, can you not see the signs?" I could, but I was hoping. Hoping that I'm wrong. Hoping that it was a bad dream. Truth is, I was scared to find out. But I had to. I needed proof. So I wasn't proud of it. I put a tracker in her car. I pretended to be at work late so she didn't see me when she got home. She did arrive home. I watched from a distance and she set off again in her car. I followed her as she went further out of town. She eventually pulled into a car park that was secluded in the corner. She was waiting until another pulled up next to her. It was him. Marjus. She got out and got into his car. It was obvious what they were doing. I recorded her getting into his car for evidence against her. For the next few days she acted like everything was fine. I mean, I know that she doesn't realize I know, but she was acting like normal. Smiling to me. Even holding my hand at breakfast. She left to go to work. I had a day off and decided to snoop on the laptop to see anything suspicious. There was nothing. But when I was looking through her drawers, I know. Not my proudest moment, I see an iPad under the bottom drawer. It wasn't mine, so I assumed my wife bought it. Luckily for me, it didn't need a password. I don't know if she forgot to lock it, but I got lucky. I got in and looked. Now this is where the damage really hurt. I looked in the iPad and checked to see text conversation, but nothing. However, what I was about to see I will never ever forget. There was a folder of pictures of my wife naked. Making sexual positions for him. There were so many. But there was more. There were videos. I know I shouldn't have looked at them, but I did. The videos were graphic. Marjus sleeping with my wife and my wife enjoying it. But that not all. My wife was seen sleeping with another woman and another man with Marjus there. But the other man was someone who really made me sick. He is a bigot. He had vile tattoos of certain groups who are vile. Like I said. A vile human being. It seemed that Marjus agreed with his views, which was fitting. I couldn't believe it. My wife being with a man who held bigoted views. This was a woman who detested any form of bigotry. As did I. So why would she do this? What did she see in him? It was seeing her being fully complicit that really got to me. During our marriage we always talked about fantasies but never acted on them. As a man. It was threesome, etc. But my wife said she would never do it. Never sleep with another woman or do anything that made her feel uncomfortable. I accepted that without a second thought. It didn't bother me that she didn't want to do it. I loved her. So to see her doing things that she never did with me hurt. Hurt really bad. I watched all the videos. I know I'm stupid. I copied the videos and pictures to my laptop for evidence of infidelity. Because that's all that matters. I want her gone. I just don't know why she did it. I don't know why she refused me the fantasy route, if you will. What made him so special? Why was she into a man that I thought she despised because of what he represented? Anyway, I spoke to Daniel about everything. He is a great man and friend. He couldn't believe I was talking about my wife. He was disgusted with her but noticed her change as well. I told him that I want to divorce her. He understood. He said I have enough to back me. He told me that confronting her and him is pointless because she has already made up her mind. He said that I need a fresh start and to find someone who is themselves and not a mirage of a woman I married. Like myself. Daniel hates vile racists and shook his head that my wife did this. Daniel has known my wife a lot longer than me. After speaking to Daniel, it made me feel like I was in control. For months I felt that she was in control. I was afraid to find out the truth. I didn't confront her more sternly when I was suspicious because I was afraid of the outcome. At the time I didn't know if I wanted to leave her or make it work. But after the videos, pictures and texts, I damn well know what I must do. I went to the lawyer to file for a divorce. I had enough. My wife was still acting normal. Still on the phone constantly. Still going out late. I assume with him. I didn't care. I had to wait 3 weeks for the papers to come through. I got them. I decided to move out. Luckily we rented and our lease was running out in 3 months. I was prepared to pay until then. Anyway, I wanted to move out. So the day came. She went to work. I made up that I had to go in later to cover for being short-staffed. She shrugged and said okay. No goodbye hug or kiss. Still, that hasn't happened for months, so I was used to it. She left. I packed up my essentials and put the divorce papers on the kitchen table along with my wedding ring. That was it. I stayed with my friend from university, Adam, who lived in another city. I was grateful, but more grateful that it was far from her. The city. Our same social circle. I wanted nothing to do with any of it. I told my parents about what happened and they were shocked but fully understood. I obviously didn't tell them every little detail. There was no need. All I can think of at the moment is that I'm free. My wife would, I assume, agree, as it was clear that Marjus is the one she wants. I hope that we get a quick divorce. I really do. Later that night my phone was blowing up with calls and texts. It was my wife. I was surprised because I honestly thought that this was what she wanted as well. But it seems that I couldn't be more wrong. I didn't speak to my wife. I had no interest in it. I read her messages and all of them consisted of "I'm sorry. I love you. Please can we talk?" etc. etc. This lasted for hours. I blocked her number and deleted all my social media accounts. I spoke to my lawyer about my wife signing the divorce, but she hasn't signed. She did contact me through email. I wanted to have some way of communication because I still want the divorce. She sent me an email again saying sorry a number of times and that we needed to talk. I replied no. All I want is the divorce. She replied that she doesn't want one. I am the man she only loves and Marjus meant nothing. It's funny because I never mentioned to her why I left, but she obviously knows why. Her guilty conscience and seeing her plead for forgiveness was actually satisfying. I spoke to Adam and he said I could stay as long as I wanted. I am thankful for him. But he did say that I would have to meet her eventually. He said that I left without having answers, and no matter how hard you try, eventually you will need to hear them. Inside I was disagreeing with Adam. Why should I talk to her? Why? She gave little regard to my feelings for months. She didn't care about me. She cared about her sick friend Daniel. She didn't care. So why would I talk to her? I know that deep down I'm being stubborn. But also angry that my wife is trying to reconcile. I honestly thought she would have signed and moved on with him. This has me mixed up. And even more mixed up now is that my wife wants to meet. I have a therapist who is excellent. I talked about the affair. The pictures. The videos. All of it. I mentioned that my wife wants to meet up before she signs. My therapist was blunt. She said that when I left without telling her why, deep down you wanted her to plead and her to worry. You keep telling yourself she wouldn't care, but deep down, you want her to care. You want her to feel pain. Like she did to you. However, meeting her would take some of your control. She was right. She added, if you decide to meet in person, you must ask the difficult questions even if you don't like the answer. Because you do have questions and you are not moving on at all. You are running away because you are scared that the last 7 years was a lie. Like I said. Blunt. That was 2 days ago. My wife really wants to meet and inclined that she won't sign without meeting first. I speak to my parents and close friends about it. My dad said that you could force the issue of her signing, but that could take months. But if she's willing, no guarantee to sign after you talk, then it's worth it. Adam agreed. I decided to meet my wife. Although to say I'm nervous is an understatement. How should I approach this? What should I ask her? Should I be open or guarded? Any help and advice would be grateful. Thank you for watching.